Welcome to State Lobbying Heroes Podcast, a podcast where we delve into the careers and personal life stories of some of the best and the brightest state government relations experts. I'm your host, Deepak, CEO of Legislator. Kristen Casimir grew up in Lowell, Massachusetts, where she attended high school. She went to college for liberal arts in Southern New Hampshire University for about a year, and then transferred out to Atlanta, Georgia, where she got her bachelor's in public policy. How did that shift happen? As a youngster watching CSI and Criminal Minds TV shows, she always wanted to be an FBI agent. She was advised that the next best thing to law enforcement was public policy. Kristen learned that she could be a part of governance, nonprofits, and actively working in politics to bring a change in her community. Her first foray into government affairs was in her internship with Georgia World Congress Center. She learned how to approach, speak to legislators, and budgeting. Kristen worked her way up from that point, working in several government relations positions and currently working as an associate with Connect South. Let's listen in to what Kristen learned during this journey. Hey, Kristen, thank you so much for being on the show. I really do appreciate your time.
No, thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
So let's go back in time. Did you grow up in Georgia? How was your childhood? Talk us through it.
So no, I am actually not originally from Georgia. I was born and raised in Lowell, Massachusetts. It is about 40 minutes north of Boston, closer to New Hampshire. So I grew up there, went to high school there. I went to Lowell High, and then I attended college in New Hampshire. I went to Southern New Hampshire University for about a year. And then that's when I transferred out and came here to Atlanta, Georgia.
And how was your education like? And were you interested in politics, or what was your primary focus back then?
Yeah, so back then, actually, I used to watch a lot of TV shows, your CSI and your Criminal Minds shows. And so watching Criminal Minds, I definitely wanted to become one of those FBI agent types. So politics was never my passion or never my career goal. It was definitely to be an FBI agent. And so what I wanted to take up was criminal justice. So that was originally my major. And so when I transferred down here, I went to Clark Atlanta University. It's a historically Black college. My major was also criminal justice there. I ended up transferring out because there was an opportunity at Georgia State University. And so I met with my advisors there, and they explained to me, well, you don't want to be law enforcement. You probably should go into public policy. And I was like, well, what's that? And they explained it to me, and they just said, you can do anything from governance to nonprofit to working in politics, or if you don't want to do that. And so it was at that moment that I changed my mind from criminal justice and I went into public policy.
Interesting. And your associate degree, what was that in?
My associate's degree, that's in liberal arts. So I just took my basic classes at Southern New Hampshire University. And then my bachelor's was in public policy here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Interesting. And what kind of courses did you take at the Georgia State University?
Oh, gosh. I took grant writing classes. I took data analytical classes. Oh gosh, public administration. I took a law course as well, so it definitely, my law class actually really helped me with learning how to read bills and know how to read Georgia code and that type of things. But I can't remember all of the classes on the top of my head.
That's fine. Was there any favorite course of yours?
Say my public admin class. It was just pretty like down to earth, and it was kind of like your common sense class. There wasn't too much of a right or wrong answer with that course. And so with that, I was able to speak freely and kind of really dive deep into like my thoughts and what I thought about politics and governance and all of that.
So given your career, and let's say if you had to turn back the clock, can you think of anything which stood out, which you thought like, okay, that specific course or class certainly is helping me now in my career?
Yeah, definitely my law class. Although it wasn't too deep, like I was becoming a lawyer. However, like I said, in this business now with lobbying and needing to read and understand bills and understand the code of Georgia, that class has definitely helped me, because without that, I probably would have been unfamiliar. And so I've been able to kind of pinpoint like, hey, I've learned this. And so now I'm able to apply it to what I'm doing now.
And so after your degree, bachelor's degree. Can you tell us what was your first internship and how did you get into it?
Yes. So my first internship, I was working at the Georgia World Congress Center. It is a convention center here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was just about finished with school. And my director came to me and said, "Hey, aren't you in school for public policy? Do you know we have a government affairs director who sits upstairs?" And I was like, "Government affairs? What's that?" I still, even going through my courses, I was like, I didn't know what it was. So I met with her. Her name is Lindsay Strickland. I met with her and I told her what I was going to school for. And she explained to me her role was for the Georgia World Congress Center. They deal with getting money in the budget for the Congress Center. And so she said, "If you're interested in doing this internship and helping me out during the Georgia legislative session, more than welcome to do that." And so I started with her that following January and started with her in that legislative session. So that was actually really great. I got to learn how to speak to legislators, how to approach legislators, how to understand the budgeting. I also took a budgeting class now that I'm thinking about it. So I understood how to ask for money into the budget. And so that was my first experience, my first internship.
I see. And I'm going to ask you a naive question. What does Georgia World Congress Center do? What is it for?
Yeah, so the Georgia World Congress Center, it's a convention center here in Atlanta, Georgia. So they host shows like conventions. If you talking about the International Poultry Association or Hinman Dental, so any type of organization who's having a conference or a convention, it's a convention center.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what kind of duties did you have as an administrative assistant there?
Yeah, so, well, as an administrative assistant, I was not doing my internship. That was like my full-time position prior to my internship into governance. No, it's totally fine. But my duties as an intern was to track legislation to make sure I was keeping up with legislation that may affect the World Congress Center. And then it was also to keep the director on track with meetings and such, and with other legislators if she was asking for money into the budget. And then it was also my duty to attend committee meetings just to stay in the know about what was going on and what the legislature was doing.
Okay. So how did you end up in that internship?
Yeah. So my director at the time, he told me that there was a woman who was doing government affairs. And so he told me it would be probably best in my career path to go and meet with her and see if I can get an internship.
Okay. Got it. All right. Sorry, I missed that.
It's okay.
Yeah. So after that, what was your next stint? Was it like you getting a full-time position at the administration?
No. So at the end of that internship, I did not get a full-time position. At the time, she was the only one that could hold that position. There wasn't enough work for two people to do full-time. So at that time, I went to the governor's office. At the time, it was Governor Nathan Deal, and I applied for the internship there. And so I did the internship in his office with the Policy and Legislative Affairs office. And it was pretty much the same office doing the same thing that I was doing in my prior internship, but this time it was within the governor's office. During my internship, it was not during the legislative session, it was during an off season. So it was very quiet in the Georgia State Capitol. However, we were just keeping up to date with what legislators were doing during the off season and keeping up with news and Georgia politics.
So looking at these two internship positions, can you tell us like what skill did you acquire, which is probably being handy right now?
That is a good one. I would say the skill I acquired, I would probably say a little bit more patience. And I know that may sound cliche. However, you have to have patience in this business because it's just like from going from one thing to another, you have to stay focused, and you also have to be patient with hearing back. If you're waiting on a meeting or you're waiting to hear back from someone, it could get really, really busy. And so you have to learn that patience so that way you can manage your skills and manage your meetings and your calendar better.
Okay. All right. So after your internship, then did you move on to nuclear power operations as an administrative coordinator?
I did. That was a job. Yeah, I didn't get the full-time position still at the World Congress Center at that time. The internship with the governor's office was just an internship. I needed a job, and so I went there, and I think I learned a bit. It was a nuclear power. I mean, that's completely opposite than government. So it was just a role as an administrative assistant. I made sure that the operators were going out to these nuclear power plants, making sure that they collected the correct data and made sure that their summaries for that that trip were accurate.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So what was your next stint after the nuclear power operations? Was it did you get the administrative assistant role?
After the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations, I actually received a phone call from a consultant, a political consultant, and his name was Tom Willis. And he was running a campaign because at the time, this senator was going to drop out of his Senate seat to run for governor of Georgia. So that seat was open. And so he was running this seat, and it was for Charlie Five Ash. He was running for Senate District 6. And he calls me, he says, Kristen, I heard you're organized. I heard you get things done. We need a campaign manager for a campaign. And I have never worked on a campaign before in my life. But he said, we just need someone who is organized and who can get the job done. So I accepted the role, and that is when I became, the first time I became a campaign manager for a Senate race.
Okay. And what kind of roles and responsibilities does a campaign coordinator have?
Yeah, so as the campaign manager, I was tasked with many things. I was tasked with sitting down with the candidate, making sure that he was making phone calls to donors. So this is cold calls like, hey, I'm running for Senate. Can you write me a check for $5,000? So I made sure he sat down and did donation calls. I attended meetings and events with him, made sure that he got in front of meetings in front of young people, old people, people within the district. I also had to organize and coordinate volunteers for knocking on doors, putting out signs, having t-shirts on and waving signs on election day.
So can you tell us, like, during that position, what was the one skill you acquired, which you distinctly remember?
Oh, to be honest with you, I wouldn't say I didn't acquire any skills. I think the ones that I had just emphasized, they strengthened more. If I thought I was organized before, once I got on that campaign, I was even more so organized. I was definitely vigilant. I continued my patience. It's very hard, very, very hard to get volunteers on board to work on a campaign. You're asking people to knock on doors on their Saturday afternoons. And so I would just say I just emphasized more on the skills that I already had.
Okay. And how long did you do this, the campaign?
For that campaign, oh gosh, I think I worked on that campaign for about 4 months, 5 months, maybe 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
It was a little, yeah, the election was in November. I want to say I started probably like in August, or maybe that's 3 months. Sorry, something like that. I don't remember.
Okay, all right. And then what happened after that? Is that when you got the external affairs coordinator at the Secretary of State?
Not quite. So after that, I actually hopped on another campaign. And this time it was for the same consultant, different candidate, different race. And so the race was for Public Service Commission. And so a Public Service Commissioner, they regulate the utilities within the state of Georgia. And so that as opposed to the Senate race, which was just a small Senate district, this Public Service Commission was statewide. So not just attending meetings in the district, I was attending meetings within the state of Georgia. I was traveling to North Georgia. I was traveling to South Georgia, really diving deep into who the people of Georgia were and getting them to vote for this candidate for a statewide position.
So is this what they call as grassroots advocacy?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So grassroots is when you have your folks knocking on doors and getting out the vote. What we were doing, I wouldn't necessarily say it was grassroots when you have the candidate just go and speak to committee meeting or any type of meeting that your group or your organization may be having. It's a form of it, but really grassroots is getting people who support you out, wearing your t-shirt, knocking on doors, really getting out the vote, making phone calls. That's grassroots.
Okay. And yeah, what happened after that?
And so after that, that is when I became the external affairs coordinator at the Secretary of State's office. I received a call and they were looking for someone. So I took the job. And so at first I was dealing a lot with the constituents of the state of Georgia, which I had already done throughout the campaigns and working in my internships. So I was heavily in constituent services, answering the phone calls and helping them out. And so for the state of Georgia, the Secretary of State's office is responsible for elections, corporations, professional licensing, licensing insecurities. And so we would get all kinds of calls from constituents across the state of Georgia. And it was shortly after that, I want to say a few months, there's also a program that the former Secretary of State, now Governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, started it is a student leadership, I guess you can call it a student leadership program called Student Ambassadors of Georgia. And so these are high school aged kids who are involved, who want to be involved in elections. And so what they were able to do was they could set up meetings, they could set up events, any type of activities that there was a list of like about 15 to 20 activities they could do to accumulate points throughout the school year. And this was by getting the message out that voting was important. And so I was able to manage that group with another gentleman. His name is Brandon Mooney. He and I were able to get those kids out and get them excited and get their peers and their friends and families excited about voting in Georgia.
Yeah, that's awesome. So going back to your childhood,
okay,
if you just step back, you said like you were not kind of interested in politics to begin with, but were you interested in academics? Were you like a part of any of the student body organizations there or anything like that, which you can remember?
Not academically, I would have to be honest with you. I was cheerleader back in high school, and in middle school, I was heavy in dance and cheer. And so at that time, my passion was to be professional cheerleader or professional dancer. It was always my passion. So no, politics was not on my mind as a young Kristen. However, grow up and you start to learn new things and see new things, your ideas and the opportunities are endless and they just change. And so that's how I got here today.
That's amazing. That's what I keep hearing when I'm doing this podcast. People with such diverse backgrounds and who absolutely didn't even have any clue when they were reading and studying that they were going to be getting lobbying. Now they are, and they're like thriving and they're learning a lot.
Exactly. There's so much to learn. There really is. And I'm just appreciative for the folks who have helped me out along the way and have really given me opportunities that I couldn't even have thought of or given myself.
So the External Affairs Coordinator, Secretary of State, is there anything which you can think of, any skill which you developed?
Any skills that I developed? No, I cannot.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't.
No problem. All right. So after that is when you ended up, now you're with Connect South as an associate, right?
Yes, okay. That is correct.
Okay. Yeah. Can you talk us through as how did you get this position? What is it? What is your role here?
Yeah.
And what does Connect South do?
So a few months before I took the position, well, actually, there was a consultant that I worked with on one of the campaigns, and this firm, Connect South, was looking for a new hire, and someone put my name in a hat and was like, hey, Kristen's great. She is organized and she can get it done. Going back to that, right? And so I met with the gentleman who started the firm. His name is Tony Simon, wonderful guy. Met with him and he told me exactly what they were looking for. He asked me what I was looking for, and it was kind of like the stars were just in line. And so a few days later, he had to talk to his other two partners, which are Bo Moore and Edens Davis. And he spoke to them and he told me I got the job.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so Connect South is a public affairs firm. They focus more so on lobbying in the state of Georgia. However, two of the gentlemen, Tony Simon and Paul Beneke, they also run the Republican Governors Association. And so they deal with Republican governors throughout the country. And so with that, we are a team and we just work to keep our clientele happy and deliver these results that they have been looking for. We've done really well. Again, I just started in January, so I'm 9 months in. But during this first session, we were able to get a few things done for our clients. And so we're just really grateful and really thankful for them. And we hope that we can continue to work with them and work with other people who want to do business in Georgia.
So can you tell us what kind of organizations do you work with, or what kind of policies do you work on? And is there anything specifically you guys work on or something which you don't work on?
Yeah, so we have multiple clients. However, just recently, for example, Walgreens Pharmacy is our client, and there is a bill that we were able to get through, and it is for 90-day dispensary. And so what that means is right now, or before, you have a prescription drug that you need refilled every 30 days. What we did was we worked with the legislature in order to get it so where people, instead of doing that 30-day dispense, they can get 90 days. So that way they don't have to continue to come to the pharmacy every 30 days. And so that was something very, very helpful. And I know a lot of people were very passionate about it. There wasn't too much pushback. And so that was a good win for us. And it was a positive outlook for what we were trying to do. And so that was very exciting. We also had another client, Forward US. They are an organization for legal immigration. And so we worked with them on drafting a bill for tuition equity. So it was basically for these dreamer students. So these DACA students who have been born here, not necessarily born here, but were raised here. And so they attended middle school, they attended high school in the state of Georgia. However, they are being considered out-of-state students when they attend a Georgia college. And so we tried to work with the legislature to get that passed for them to be considered in-state. Unfortunately, for the unprecedented session that we had this past year, we were unable to get it through, but we really got the conversation started and a lot of people talking about it, and a lot of people working to make something like that happen in the state of Georgia. And so that is another thing that I'm very, very proud of, that our team was able to take on this session.
That's awesome. And can you tell us what is specifically your role with Connect South?
Yeah, I'm still the newbie, but specifically my role, or all of our roles, to be honest, we are all just making sure that we're keeping up with our clients and keeping those relationships with legislators and agencies and just in the state of Georgia healthy and positive, prominent. So that's basically what we do, and we just try to deliver results for our clients.
And can you think of what makes Connect South different than the other lobbying firms?
In my opinion, based off of what I know so far, what makes Connect South different is we are a small but large firm. And so when I say that, we are a small firm in terms of employees who work here. I mean, we're a small team of 3-4 of us. But when I say a large firm, we have over 50 clients. And so it's one of those firms that I think it makes us different because we're able to deliver to all of our clients exactly what they need while still having that small, close-knit, tight family team. And so the family aspect that is in this office is just impeccable. These guys have known each other from high school to college, and they've been in each other's weddings. And so I've just been fortunate to be a part of this team and now a part of this family. And we just work so hard, and they love Georgia. They love Georgia so much. They really enjoy their clients, and they really take care of the people that they work for. And so that's what makes us different.
That's awesome. So can you tell us what is it that makes you do what you're doing? Like what drives you every day?
It's just in this industry, I mean, with any industry, I guess you could say, or you can pick out a few, but there's things constantly changing. It's not, every day is not the same. And I think for the people in this business, I mean, I wouldn't say an addiction, but just the aspect of coming into work and it's like, okay, so how are we gonna make someone get some business here in Georgia today? Or what's the latest on Georgia politics or world politics? So it's just I can't explain the the word that I'm looking for, but it's just the constantly changing and constantly growing and learning for me. That is what drives me. And no day is the same, and I'm always learning something new every day.
Okay, perfect answer. So that was your past and your current. Let's look towards the future. Where do you see yourself maybe 5-10 years down the road? Do you have any kind of aspiration or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely would like to have my own firm, and I would like to do a little bit of the legislative work affairs, but I also definitely want to do the political consulting as well. And so just having that tie into both, having a team doing one and a team doing the other, I think would be great for me.
Okay, great. So I think now just to look back, is there any one incident or any funny incident, doesn't have to be funny, but any incident which you can distinctly remember throughout your career or childhood, which makes you laugh or which you cannot forget?
Yeah, I would say knocking on doors. Working on a campaign and knocking on doors, you don't know what you're going to get behind that door. And so just, I guess you said funny. So this is a funny story. knocked on this door. I was campaigning for a candidate and knocked on this door, and this woman sicked her cat on me. And she was like, get her, get her. And I was like, and I literally just started running. And you don't run from a cat, but cats usually run from you. But this cat was ready to attack. Wow. And so I ran down the street away from this cat. And that was probably not the scariest, but a funny situation that I had to deal with while knocking on doors, trying to get people out to vote.
Don't worry, even I would have ran. So
yeah, running from a cat.
That's fantastic. So I think that's all about the set of questions I had for you as far as your career goes. Okay. I do have a couple of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So if you're all set, I can ask you those questions.
Let's go. I'm ready.
So the first question I had is, what are the 3 skills you think are essential for someone to be a good lobbyist?
Yes. 3 skills. They would be competence, organization, and patience.
What would you be if you weren't a lobbyist?
Professional dancer.
What is your favorite book or hobby? Either or.
My favorite hobby is just to hang out, read like tabloids and like scroll on like Twitter. Just kind of keep that is my favorite hobby, just keeping up with what's going on in my friend's life and just in the world.
Okay. So I think that's a good segue to my question. What kind of technology or media do you follow to keep up with the current state of the politics?
Yeah, I definitely keep up, obviously Twitter, not so much Facebook, but I get updates for our local newspapers, our local news, AJC, Georgia Poll. There's a lot of things that just kind of pop up that I listen to and I read.
Going back to the rapid fire, do you have any role models in your life?
Yes, my mother.
Okay. And what inspires or motivates you?
What inspires me is the youth. I probably should have told you this, but when I was younger, I was a camp counselor. And ever since then, especially with the whole dance and cheerleading, just young women that are growing up, and to see me and doing the things that I'm doing, that really drives me. That really makes me, that's a passion for me, because I want young girls who look like me to be able to know that they can do whatever it is that I'm doing, or if they put their mind to it, that it's possible. And so that just makes me feel so good that when young girls look at me and they're like, what are you doing? I can do that too. And I was like, oh, yes, you can. And so that really, really warms my
heart. Oh, that's awesome. I think that's a fantastic way to end the conversation. So I can give you a couple of minutes if you want to just talk about anything which you think I should have asked you about yourself or your organization.
Yeah, no, just diving back into being appreciative. This industry is not one that you can just apply and get the job. It's really about relationship building. And that is one thing that I love about the firm that I'm with now, Connect South. They are just truly passionate about what they do. They genuinely have these relationships with the people that they talk to and talk about. And so I just want whoever's listening to this to know relationships and being kind and being yourself and being 100, keeping it real all the time is very, very, very important. A lot of people may fake this and fake that, but being true to yourself and staying true to your beliefs and your morals, it will go a long, long way. And so I just can't stress that enough. And I just really, really thank the people who have paved the way for me and who have put my name at the top of the list or mentioned my name for whatever reason it was, or the people who paid attention to me when I didn't think anyone was paying attention. That is when people are paying attention. And so always give your best, put your best foot forward, and never think that any job is too little to do.
On that positive note, thank you so much, Kristen, for taking the time to and spending.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me.
Oh, great.
Every person is unique. So are their experiences. I hope you learned something new from Kristen's experiences. Thanks for your great support of the podcast. Take care until next time.